But some of y'all people, y'all be saying free, they might need to stay in jail. Some of them need help, they need help. They need rehabilitation, I should say. So hi, hello, and welcome to the Cozy Little Book Club. I'm your host, Taylor. Thank you so much for joining. I am so thrilled to tell y'all that I'm back in my sci-fi bag. I know we were scary girl, creepy, eerie, weirdo girl for Halloween, but we're back in our sci-fi bag. That's how you do it, right? Oh, yeah. Truthfully, I'm in my sci-fi bag and I'm in his too. I love reading sci-fi, but specifically Black sci-fi. So I'm really excited to tell you about this book today. And this book is going to have you feeling a lot of ways, okay? It made me feel, when you see, like if you go to therapy, which everybody should go to therapy, they have this scale and it's like, how do you feel? And it kind of goes from, happy, sad, angry, blah, 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 this range of emotions. And I feel like I felt that, like a cycle of just a lot of emotions. And obviously I don't want to exclude because I haven't read all the sci-fi books in the world, but I will like to say that, yeah, my favorite genre is sci-fi, but specifically Black sci-fi. It's really cool to imagine Black people in different worlds. And that is really thrilling to me and very imaginative and also very freeing. So before I get into this book, I just wanted to kind of give you that spiel because this book really does free you and open your mind in so many ways. I'm really excited to share the book that we're reviewing today, and I want to do a little bit of a drum roll. The book we're reviewing today is Sky Full of Elephants by Cebo Campbell. This book had my mind reeling and the wheels turning. There's so many things to think about when listening to this book. And yes, I said listening because this book has been in hot demand. This is Cebo Campbell's first book. So I didn't want to wait for the book at the library. It was taking forever. So I got the audiobook and I'm definitely going to go buy this book this weekend, period. This book, it needs to be on my shelf for myself and my kids, my future kids. I think about that. So when I think about, even though I preach about going to the library a lot, I do think about books that I want my children, my Black children, to read and learn from and be curious about. So anyway, I love this book. So before I even get into the summary of this book, I really encourage y'all to not only read this book, but read this book with an open mind, okay? I really want y'all to think about the things that y'all are feeling when you read this book. Think about the things you're thinking about, feeling, what that says. So with that, I want to get into the book. Now, this is the part where I would typically give a trigger warning, but I really don't think anybody would be that triggered by this book other than white people. Maybe if they come at it with a closed mind, they will be feeling some type of way. And so now we actually get into the book summary. The story starts off with a man named Charlie who was formerly incarcerated, who is now teaching at Howard University in Washington, D.C. Charlie was only able to get back into the real world and into teaching because of the event. Here it goes. The event was a time when all of the white people in America walked to the nearest body of water and drowned themselves. Let's save that a beat because yes, it is wild as hell, but that is purely just the tip of the iceberg. So yes, Charlie was in prison. He was freed when all the white people killed themselves, and now he's teaching at Howard. Just so we're clear, that's how the order went. And since that very bizarre day, a lot of things in America have changed, as you can imagine. Homelessness was pretty much gone. There's less trash and pollution out in the street. There's still internet and electricity, but it's much slower than, we're typically used to, having this rapid, fast internet and electricity as soon as you turn on the light. Those things are still intact, but it's a lot slower. And something is different in the air. It feels almost as if there's a lighter feeling in the air. There's a lighter feeling everywhere for everybody. Nearly a year later, Charlie is still getting acclimated with not only being free from prison, but this new way of life, this new American life. One day while he was sleeping, he received a phone call from a young woman who turned out to be his estranged daughter. He never met her because he was in prison for all of her life. So we kind of forgot about her, but hold on my man Charlie, it was very understandably so. You see, his daughter's mother, named Elizabeth, is the reason why Charlie went to prison. She and her brother wrongfully accused Charlie of raping her. And before you ask, yes, she was a white woman. So now that white people are gone, he never really thought about Elizabeth after the event. And he never thought about his daughter. So when she calls him with a terrible attitude, asking for his help to get her from Wisconsin to down south, he's flooded with an array of emotions. But now that he knows she's all alone, he's determined to help her. And he also wants to learn more about his only living family member. In a time where you don't really have to rent cars and the internet and GPS navigation are completely different, Charlie is truly in for quite the adventure. So let's talk about Sydney, Charlie's daughter. She's 19 years old and has never really fit in anywhere. In a predominantly white town in Wisconsin with her white mother, stepdad, and twin brothers, she always felt different. And it wasn't just about feeling different. The people around her made her feel different and excluded her and made her feel othered. Though her mother loved her, she never felt like she belonged in her neighborhood, at her school, in her town, and even at her own home with her family. She could never quite pinpoint the feeling, but it became even more apparent after the event. The story goes on from Charlie meeting up his incredibly hostile, angry, biracial child and helping her get to Orange Beach, Alabama. Sydney is convinced that some of her family, her real family, survived the event after her aunt left a note saying we're not all gone and that they headed down south. With so little information about what's going on in the world, there are a lot of rumors that say that the South has ultimately gone to shit and it's very dangerous and not a place that you'd want to be. Through their time together on this trek, they learn a lot more about each other. Charlie learns about Sydney's rage and pain, and Sydney learns more about the minds and the culture of Black people, especially since she's never really been around them. It's a plethora of new experiences for both of them. Oh yeah, and something else I should mention is that Sydney never knew that her mother and uncle were the reason that her dad was never around. She truly thought he abandoned her. That is f***ed up. And so she felt a lot of resentment towards him. She never really wanted to ask him for help. Eventually, they do find themselves in Alabama, and things are unlike what they could have even imagined. And they really begin to have an understanding for each other, as well as themselves, what it means to be Black, and how to move forward. The themes in this book are definitely rooted in the overbearing power of oppression. There's more themes, but that just deserved a beat by itself. The overbearing power of oppression. It also takes a look at the definition of freedom, self-identity, self-actualization, generational trauma, wounds and healing, memory, and honestly, universal consciousness. I'd even say Black consciousness. So as I've already said, I really love this book and I felt a lot. You felt that deep ancestral sigh I just let out. I felt a lot while listening to this. I felt happy. I cried tears of joy. I cried tears of pain and anger. I was irritated and agitated. And even while writing this review, I definitely shed a few more tears, just like a release. Something that just needed to come out. This book was so beautiful in a lot of parts, but also sometimes scary and very infuriating in other parts. I could tell you that I love that a Black man was freed, and the first thing he thought to do was go help people, young people at that, teaching them what they need to learn in this new world, what to think about. It was very powerful to me. Like, from prison to Howard, that's a leap. And it's beautiful. And he thought, hey, I need to help my community. And I need to be, he needed to be busy, but he also wanted to help his people. He wanted to help the young people. He wanted to help himself, having the infrastructure and learning the things that are around so that you can move forward in this new world. And I thought that was truly beautiful. And I think we can really learn a lot from people who just dive into helping people. And I think that we could all learn from Charlie, that we can be more caring, more loving, more compassionate to other people. And I really appreciated that. But it's really crazy to think that this man had been locked up for nearly 20 years. And that's the first thing he thought to do, was to go and help people. How could you not like Charlie? And his patience is everything, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that in a minute. And then to go across the country, I mean, DC and Wisconsin aren't that far apart, but it's still a trek with everything that's going on in the world. It's a trek, okay? To go to this rude, loud, ignorant girl, to help her, take her to where she wants to be after she demands it, is just, it really just says a lot about his patience. And it really says a lot about his character, for sure. That means something. That means you are a very special person. And honestly, I want to acknowledge that he's a very special Black man. Shout out to Charlie. He's the man. He's the leader we need. He's the role model, the boys and the guys and the women and the girls. We all need that we need that, And he needs that. He needs that support too. So I feel like when I'm thinking about this book, there's so many thoughts and I just can't, I'm trying to keep it short because I can go on a whole thing about this. So this will be a long, review. One thing about this new world is that everybody was helping each other. And that's where we thrive. Community. That's where we thrive. If you needed your car fixed, somebody will help you. If you needed something out from the store, if you're an elderly lady who needed something from the store, somebody's going to get it for you. It's nothing. We're helping each other. And that's how you build community. And that's how you build strong communities. I think a lot of times we talk about community and it's very broad, but it can be very central, very local to you. And then you can grow that community if you decide to. But ultimately, we want to be in live a loving, giving world, right? And so at least that's what I think. And I think the people that I am around want that too. And shout out to the Haitians. Ça passe. They were doing a lot of healing throughout this book and they just don't get enough credit. And they really took the lead on keeping our ancestors' stories, healing practices, spirits alive and pushing it forward to other people, or not pushing it forward to the next generation. I'm just super grateful for that. So I just think that this is something that we should keep intact this is how you keep things going. People talk about legacy. This is it. Keep that going. That's so, so important. It is the fabric of our essence. Honestly, it is. I'm not just saying about like Haitians, but I'm just saying like Black people, we just have to, but to do that, you have to know about yourself. So, and that's tricky. That's slippery slope with us being in America. It's a little tough. So I understand, but it's important to keep those traditions and those practices alive. Like I can go on a whole tangent about that, but I won't. So, shout out to my Haitians, man. Shout out to my Zoes, baby. Shout out. But for real, ça passe. So, as you can imagine, I had a lot of questions about this new society. So for one, when they released all the inmates, I was like, well, damn, all the inmates? Which I know that sounds crazy, but some people actually are serial killers, murderers, rapists. Like, should they just be out? I don't know. Maybe they've been rehabilitated. I don't know. I was just like, what about the dangerous people? Like, what happens to them? And unfortunately, they didn't really get into that too much. Not really. Like, I would have liked to have had an answer, but that was one of my first thoughts for sure. I was like, okay. Like, there's definitely a lot of people who are wrongfully convicted. We know that. But some of y'all people, y'all be saying free, they might need to stay in jail. Some of them need help, they need help. They need rehabilitation, I should say. So, and then my next question was about infrastructure, internet, electricity, Wi-Fi, public transportation. What happens to those things? I think the book did a decent job of addressing that. It was still America, money was still being made, things were still running, but it just wasn't as tight or efficient as what we're currently used to. So it made me think, like, damn, we need more Black people who are engineers, electricians, doctors, physicians, firefighters, things that really help make society keep going. Now, don't get me wrong, because as someone who works in more of like the media space, those things are important too, but can I get you solar paneling? No. I cannot hook that shit up. I can't do it for myself. Can I help you garden? Yes, I can help you plant some shit. It's kind of like the 21st century hunters and gatherers. We need a lot of hunters, okay? We need people, if you eat meat, killing the animals. Not that we should slaughter them. We don't have to mass produce them and mess up the ozone layer and all this stuff. But, if you want to eat, you need to learn how to hunt. You know what I'm saying? You need to learn how to fish. You need to learn how to do these things, because production of a lot of things is not going to be as efficient. It's going to be slower. But it just made me think, like, damn, a lot of these kinds of jobs rely on a lot of white people. So it is something to consider, If you're in college right now, think about that. Or if you're not in college, think about that. These are things that we need. So it is something it's really interesting, because I think about that often. Even like outside of this book, how the skills that I need for me to survive if something were to ultimately go down. I always think about that. So I'm always about that. It's never wrong to have these kinds of skills. If you can't do electricity and stuff, that's fine. Learn how to make a fire, bitch. You need to do the basics, okay? And one thing I really loved was that there was no president. No one was fighting to be the president. Wasn't none of them damn political ads. I know y'all seen that shit, because they revved up. They I don't even want to talk about the election, but there was no president. Nobody just felt that they needed to be at the top and ruling. And that's something I think I'll just leave it at that. That was really cool to me. So for the most part, everything seemed pretty chill, considering everybody was nice. Everything was going well. And maybe that's me in the current state of reality that's happening in this world right now. But it didn't feel super realistic to me. Like, everybody was getting along. I guess I'm also thinking about it, my perspective is coming from a place where there are white people. We are high functioning in this throwing everything in your face reality, And when you peel back those layers, when you don't have all the social media, I'm sure social media was still around. Like, I don't know when this book, like what year this book takes place per se. But it's pretty modern. Like, that's safe to say. But I do think about those people, because I think about those, I don't want to sound head ass, but I do think about those people who engage in, like, this is not to be judgy, but you know who I'm talking about. Like, just low vibrational activities, things that are not helping them, the people around them, nobody. But yeah, like, and this time, it's as if people have a new kind of Black empowerment, enlightenment. Like, what happens to those people who are not tuned into that frequency? So I think that's another valid question. I think all my questions are pretty valid. But yeah, I thought about that. So you might be wondering, what happens to the other races? What about the Latinos? What about the Asians? What about Native Americans? What about just everybody else, you know? And I thought about the same thing. I was like, where are they at? And some of them were still around, you know, were they in great groups of people? I don't know. Based on the book, in the book we saw a Native American man, a small 4-people family of Asians. Sometimes you see, you know, some Hispanic and Latin people, you know, it didn't seem like they were in an influx, but yeah, it was mostly black people. And so that brought me to what the book is kind of really getting at. Who identifies as white and who identifies as black? Please don't misunderstand me in saying that I'm thinking that the Asians, the Latin and Hispanic people and everybody else, they're identifying as black. It's just who is more tuned in and referring to themselves as white, you know? So like that, what's that identity? And so that in itself was a whole nother, like a whole nother thing of questions. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean to be white? What does it mean to be black? What does it mean to be any of that shit? You know, are these ideas? Are they colors? What are they? Is it a state of mind? It's a lot of questions to be asked. Some of them were still around, and honestly, there's really no telling of how many of them walked and drowned themselves in the ocean. That's a whole nother conversation. But it ultimately gets down to identity. So it got me thinking, people who exclusively hang out and date white people, right? How does this affect them? You know, if you're someone who is married to a white woman, she drowns herself, how does that affect you? How does that show you that you are kind of separated in your blackness and their whiteness? You know, like, it's just like a plethora of questions. The people who had really close friends, like the token black person in a group of white people. This was like a really harsh reality for them, you know, and now who are you without them? Because if you are the token, that's your thing, that's your brand. I think, was it like not another teen movie? Silly movie. But he's like, yeah, I'm just here, I'm the token black guy. Like, well, who are you without them? If you're not the token black guy, because if you just around a bunch of other black people, you're just a guy. You know, so it really makes you think. And then at one point, when Charlie and Sydney were taking a plane, because they're still pilots, there are black pilots, y'all. Like, shout out to my people. And Chicago was thriving. I have a very deep love and respect for Chicago and the people of Chicago. I love y'all down. But yeah, it was a black ass city still thriving. Shout out to them. But yeah, when Sydney and Charlie were flying from Chicago to Mississippi to get to Alabama, there was a Native American man, and I obviously can't see it. It's a book, and I was listening to it, but I just imagined how happy he was. You know, Charlie described him as like a nice, you know, Native American man who was smiling. And I think, what does that do for him? You know, like, your ancestors really died on this land. A lot of our ancestors did, you know, and your ancestors died on this land, and they try to take your shit, try to stereotype you into being drunk people and only doing casinos and gambling, kind of try to stick you in a reservation. Obviously, that's not the reality for all Native Americans or indigenous people. But yeah, I was like, I would love to have gotten a conversation from Charlie and that man, because I really would love to know how that would make someone feel who has been repeatedly washed out of history and just I'm gonna take a little detour, right? I remember I was on a road trip from Alabama to Utah. And I remember when I was driving, I drove by myself, long drive. But I had a lot of thoughts in that drive. And I remember like thinking, you know, we keep seeing these mile markers. I say we, me and Boo Boo was asleep. But I kept seeing these mile markers for the Trail of Tears. And I'm just like, do you think that Native American people and indigenous people want to see that shit all the time? Like, you're literally just marking where a lot of their family died. A lot of their ancestors murdered, left for dead, just bleeding on us. It boggles me to what that's supposed to be like a memorial, but it's just really sad. And so I would have loved if there was a conversation with that Native American man about how he felt in this new world, because I mean, it is a new world. And so it's just, I don't want to say it's a missed opportunity, but just me being who I am, I would have loved to have seen that. He is the original American, the OG American. And now you don't have to fight with people for what is really yours. You can reclaim that land. You can heal yourself and your people. And that is just powerful, truly powerful. And anger. This book made me think a lot about anger and how much anger you really are hiding within yourself. I think a lot of people, I don't even want to just say colored people or people of color. I think a lot of black people and some other people can relate to just being angry, and maybe it's not like surface level angry, maybe it's just like deeply rooted. And so maybe you're not always thinking about it, but it's kind of like this underlying frustration. And so it just made me think like, how many of us are sitting with that anger, and how long are we supposed to just deal with it? I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky person for the most part. I mean, I'm a human, so I have all my ups and downs too, but it really made me come to terms with some of the things that I've been thinking about and feeling underneath, and so I just heed everyone, particularly black people, to really think about that anger that you might be carrying, that you probably are carrying, and just sit with that and think about it, because especially in America, like it's just think about that, So now I want to get on to Sydney crusty ass, because I don't like her. I really try to empathize with her, and have compassion. I really try to put myself in her shoes, but truth is, I will never put myself in her shoes, because I'll never be a biracial woman. I'll never be a biracial person. I'm black, and so I really struggled with her. But this isn't all her fault. It's not all her fault. It really was indoctrined in her to be so goddamn ignorant, and just willfully and woefully so, okay? Like just willingly ignorant and rude and disgusting. And she really pissed me off a lot. She grew up with her white mom and her very white family, and they othered her, and that made her feel inferior. And she really didn't know that was what that feeling was. And that's why I go back to that anger. What is it? You don't know, because it's always around, it's just always like just buzzing some bullshit or like weird vibes, it's always thrust upon you, and it's always just buzzing right below. So it just really makes you think. Like, I really don't know how to explain it for people who are not black or other black and indigenous people, because if you ask anybody else, they just understand that underlying energy and how that feels kind of on you all the time, And I could only imagine being a black person or a half black person and being around white people all the time, and they always got that energy about them, and that energy of like, you're different, we really don't with you, like that. The color people get it. The color people get it. And I'm not saying all this to exclude anybody. I'm just saying, like, this is the reality for a lot of people. So if you're offended by this, tough titties, okay? Like, that's just what it is. So when her family killed themselves, she wanted to join them. She wanted to shoot herself. She wanted to drown herself. And she had all these negative thoughts about black people and how they're just inherently bad and savages and just disgusting people. It's really just self-hate, and you just don't know it because you didn't grow up around black people. And so it's like, I get it's not your fault, but if it makes you think about the people that you're around and what they're actually teaching you as like what's good and what's bad, you know, like how to be a better person. I feel like if you are around people who teach you how to be good people, you're not going to have these automatic thoughts about black people just immediately being thugs and bad, savage people. I just hate that for her. But she really didn't try to, from my perspective, she didn't really try to learn anything about her. It's very clear that you're black. You didn't really try to see anything. I don't know if she really even tried to be around black people or any black friends at her school or in her community. I know that Wisconsin is pretty white, but like, you can't tell me there's just like no black people at all. Like, one of my good friends is from Wisconsin, like, and she black. Come on, her whole family from, like, be for real. I was just, listening to her was annoying. I didn't like the voice actress. I was like, okay, like everything was just pissing me off. So I was over it. And what really pissed me off is that she kept talking about how she wanted to go back to when it was a better time. Like, bitch, what do you mean you want to go back? Here you are as someone with your black ass who never felt comfortable in your own skin and you want to go back. Girl, if you don't get up out my face, like, oh, that's what I'm saying. Charlie had the patience. The patience of a father. Even though he never really was a father, but like, he had that patience. And I just don't think I have it. But that's why we love Charlie. He a good dad, okay? That's why we gonna ride for Charlie. And she really stood on being ignorant. She was she didn't want to learn. Like, that's what I'm saying. She didn't even try to learn. She didn't try to open her mind to nothing. Like, you were good with being so fucking ignorant. And that is pathetic to me. Very lame. And it's really, she's to blame because she's 19. But it's really your trifling ass mom, because your mama had you thinking your daddy abandoned you when he was in prison because of her lying, trifling, dusty ass. And so I felt for her in that, and like, she feels, it was just disgusting. And I felt for her because she was going through a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings, a lot of new experiences. They had her eating chitlins. I wouldn't necessarily do that. Like, you don't gotta be traumatized like that, but I understand why they did it. But, you know, you need to know where you come from, because it's not just you coming from the lavender field in, I think, Scotland, some shit, whatever. Girl, you're black. Embrace that shit. Or don't. But don't be rude and disrespectful and ignorant to everybody else who was willingly trying to help yo trifling ass. It was killing me. It was killing. And what really pissed me off was this time when she was about to shoot this little boy for playing in her yard, like a little black boy. And something that, hold on to that, because I want to get back to that. But she wanted to shoot this little boy, and then she wanted to shoot his daddy because he was trying to save his son. And it's just like, you were just so quick to want to end his life. Oh, by the way, when she met Charlie, she pulled up on the man with a shotgun. She was like, yeah, you gonna help me. Like, that's crazy. That's your dad. I get you don't know him, but like, insanity. What the fuck are you doing? Like, it was crazy. And this little boy, I don't know how old he was, but he was a little kid. He just playing. You finna shoot him because he's just on your yard? Like, girl. Nasty. But not like Tinashe sexy nasty. Like, you need your ass beat nasty. And so, yeah, she had like a really wicked sense of what was right and wrong. And that was only by the hands of like what white people thought were right and wrong. And so a lot of times in the book, she was kind of like a narc, and she was like getting on my nerves. Like, they were like smoking something. She's like, let us smoke. Like, girl, get your lame ass out of here. Like, this is some ancestral shit. You don't even know. You're not even trying to know. You just immediately judge. You tried to shoot this little boy because you thought it was wrong of him to be on your property. Like, make sense. Like, you really got to be an evil person to think that that's okay. It's a child. I really struggled with her. I just didn't like her. But I will say she did have some very wild and long, grueling growing pains and growing to do. She really had a lot to work on. So yeah, shout out to her daddy for that patience. And shout out to the people who helped her, because all of them were patient, truly. And I guess that kind of goes with what I was going to go to next about time. But they really had all the time to be patient with her. I don't really care if I have all the time. I'm not going to convince you that being black is not inherently bad. I know it's not bad. Being black is very cool. Period. And that's on Martin Luther King. But yeah, I want to do a little quick thing about time, because this is getting real lengthy. But time, what does time even matter now that we don't have to be in these structures of capitalism? And now that the people who made the system are gone, we don't have to follow those rules. And so I feel like that's really freeing. And so, yeah, that's something I thought about too, but I don't want to get into it because I can get into a whole other little tangent, but yeah. But I do want to go back to the subject of identity. Some people were really lost as without white people, okay? They had this group of people called the Walkers. These were the people who wanted it to go back to how it was. And that was just interesting. That was a choice. And so in one part of Alabama where she wanted to go, in Orange Beach, they had these walkers. So I don't want to get into everything about Alabama because that would give a lot of the book away. But yeah, they were just walking because they wanted to, maybe they wanted to drown themselves so that they could be with the white people, or they wanted to have their lives kind of be like them. It was just really interesting. Yeah, y'all walking to be in the shackles of oppression, and it just pissed me off, and it made me upset, and it made me sad. And I was just like, I don't get it, but some people, they don't know themselves, and so that's how they benchmark themselves to. Yeah, I'm gonna just leave it at that. It was very tough reading about these people who wanted to drown themselves so that they can be with white people. And I don't say that as a way to be disgusted with white people or anything like that. I'm just saying damn, what could they have done? What could have been done to help them recognize and love themselves so that they don't have to use that as a benchmark, use white people as a benchmark. So this book is rough. I'm not going to lie to you. This book is rough, but it's beautiful also. I don't want to just get downtrodden and oh my God, all these questions. What's going on? No, it's a very beautiful book, and it really makes you think about what it means to be black and what it means to have that universal connectedness with each other, with the universe, with black people, with the earth, with the land, with the plants, with the trees, with the food, all these things. And it just made me think, and it's kind of heavy. I'm not going to act like it's not, but I don't mind this kind of heavy because it also provides hope and self-actualization. So yeah, there were a lot of talks about how being white was an idea. And I think that really made a lot of sense, how I was talking about people who predominantly hang out with white people and how they would fare without them. In their heads, if they were one of the people who were walkers, in their heads, do they think of themselves as white? It made me think about this quote from the book, and I'm going to read it to you. In the absence of white people, the American identity moved forward, but with a handicap, limping under the weight of old ways and a crippled sense of self. So it really does have to do with your identity and trying to figure out yourself in this fractured state of identity. I just had a lot of questions about that because I just can't stop saying it, but it really makes you think, And if it doesn't make you think, it should make you curious. I hope so. Damn, this book has a lot of things going on. So if you're not thinking about it, what you doing? It was also especially interesting reading this book when it's election season. Okay. I know people try to make the election just strictly be a black and white thing. And I really mean that because some people identify themselves, maybe their race is not white, but they identify themselves as white, and some, and this separatist thing. and the tensions within that, you know? Whew. In this book, Black people just got to experience a freedom like no other. I'm just thinking, how can anyone be comfortable under the weight, and I really mean the weight of oppression? You're constantly being judged, criticized, scrutinized, looked at, watched. You know, you go to a store, somebody's following you. If they're not following you, they watch you on the security camera. They're looking at you real crazy. You know, all these things. You can't even walk outside. You can't go running. Someone chasing your ass, murdering you. You know, how does it feel to be free? And I don't say that in like a dramatic, poetic kind of thing. What is that feeling? I would have loved to know what that felt like for those people in the book. And it's kind of conflicting because it's like you don't want white people to kill themselves, but like, what is a world where we are really in harmony? You know, what is that world? What does it look like? How does it look for people that look like me? And, you know, maybe you don't always feel those feelings, but it's always there. Like I said, it's that underlying thing. The microaggressions, the daily grind, the daily fear for some people really truly feel that this could be their last day alive. You see how that's heavy on somebody, how that's heavy on a group of people, on anybody? You know, that's a lot to carry constantly. You know, people call cops for help and then they end up dying. You know, it's just, that's a lie. You're really taking a gamble trying to get help that you need, and you could die. And you could die from not the thing that you originally called for, just on some racist shit. You know, it's just crazy. It's sad. It's infuriating. It makes me want to hug myself. It's a lot. And it's not like I never think about it, but this book really, shout out to you, Cebo, because it really just makes me have it under another lens, you know? So, I don't know. It was a lot. I feel like tired talking about it. I feel winded, you know, it's a lot. Like, imagine not having to think about that. You can dance freely, you can shout, you can enjoy, you can embrace, you can kiss, you can love, you can just be outside, just doing whatever you want with no one, turn that music down, or, you know, nothing harming you. You have no thought to think about the potential repercussions for that. You know, people tiptoe in this society. Like, we don't talk about it, and that's not really fair. Will there ever be a time that Black Americans specifically ever feel that way? I don't know, but that's a question that definitely needs an answer, or a solution. And without giving away too much, I was really happy to see that Alabama wasn't the downtrodden place that everybody thinks it is. Like, I've lived in Alabama, and I know that people be like, Alabama, and like, I get it. Alabama has a really bogus history. So I get it, but it was really nice to see that instead of it just being known for this crazy, terrible history, it was a beacon of light, a beacon of gathering, and I was really happy to see that. And now, you may be thinking, why did white people drown themselves? Initially, I had the same question. It's a bit conflicting, but ultimately I can't say why that happened. But I can't say why it happened because it'll give away a lot of the book. But I am curious to see, you know, if Cebo comes out with another book, how that would affect people around the world. Because in this book, it's only about the people in America. So I'm just curious to know how that would look when it comes to international affairs, wars, things like that. So yeah. But also, how would that affect the world and the healing of it? Because everyone's affected in some kind of way by white people. Sorry, not sorry. As I said, I have like a gazillion other thoughts and questions and feelings, but for the sake of this long ass video, I'm gonna just cut it there. So I hope that kind of got your mind going. So with that, I'm gonna give this book a solid and much deserved 5 out of 5 golden bookmarks. It was thought-provoking, it was beautiful, it was sad, and I cried. I cried a lot. I just cried. I just cried a lot. And it was necessary, and it was good to do so. It felt good. I really hope that y'all read this book, but I really hope that you get something from this book as well. Maybe a new perspective. Not different, but like something new. You're inviting it in and being open to it. So this was a really great book, and if this is the first book that Cebo made, like, shout out to him. Like, I'm really excited to see what else he has cooking up next. It really is something for everyone, and even though white people have and will be mad about this book, I'll just say this. I'm not telling you what to think, I'm just telling you what to think about. I had to turn the light on because it's getting really dark in here. And with that wraps up another episode of the Cozy Little Book Club. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this damn near dissertation of a book review. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you've made it to the end, please leave a little stack of book emojis or any other emoji that you see fit, and let me know what you thought about it. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because we will be dropping a new book review each week. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope y'all have a lovely day. And with all of these things happening right now in our current reality, please take time for yourself. Take all the time that you need to feel the feelings, think the thoughts, be gentle with yourself. And now more than ever, y'all should really be reading a book. Y'all should really be getting into some new ideas and reading books. Because remember, when you open a book, you open your mind. Until next time, peace.